Hi everyone, my name is Wana. Welcome to Culture Diaries. On this episode, for our guest, food isn't just food. It is exploration, it is artistry, it is heritage, it is culture, and so many more things. Some of you might know her by the name Kitchen Butterfly. The rest of us know her by the name Ozoz. Welcome.
Thank you, Anna.
So I need to share a quick story with you guys about Ozoz. I literally stalked her. We became friends on the internet over scent leaf. We bonded over scent leaf because she had this scent leaf curry. And then you had a season where you were talking about 30 days of lime and things to do with limes. And I was suggesting recipes as well. And then I went to a workshop, she was in Chimamanda Adichie's writing workshop. I literally went there, I was like, I just came here to find Kitchen Butterfly. I want her to be my friend. Yes.
But the family was mutual.
Yeah. Really?
It is mutual.
Yes and no. But thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure, my absolute pleasure.
I love the fact that I think what attracted me to you was always the fact that food wasn't just about food. There was just so many more layers to it. And I think there was a period you were traveling and just showing us different kinds of foods and how they sort of interconnect with us as people across different divides and different continents as well. What made you decide, you wanted to approach food from that perspective?
It's interesting for me because I started out when I was younger as someone who didn't eat. So for the first 9 years of my life, I hated food.
Wow.
And the first time I ate a proper meal was when my dad took my sister and I were in Scotland at the Edinburgh Festival, and my dad took my sister and I to Wimpy, a fast food place, and I think we'd been walking, so I had actually worked up an appetite. I had a burger, Mirinda, and then my dad asked if I wanted a second one, and I said yes. And I finished it, but when I was done, my stomach hurt. I actually cried because I was in so much pain. But that kind of broke the jinx of not eating.
I was going to say it was like a breakthrough moment.
It was.
Especially for a Nigerian parent. She's eating.
She's eating. My father was so shocked because it was the first time that he had seen me eat without threat or tears. Every other time he was standing over me, you have to finish this food. So I think for me, food has always been about discovery. It's always been about learning, about travel, about other places. And I've lived away from home a few times, and each time food has been the kind of glue. It's been the thing that has made me remember home fondly. When I was in Ife, I would long for my mom's banga soup in a clay pot, and then I would get home and that would be the first thing I would eat. And then I moved abroad to university in Liverpool, and jollof rice just became this thing that was more than red rice. It was how I remembered Sundays at home, how I remembered Christmas, how I remembered family gatherings. But I think the most remarkable or the strongest connection that I've been able to draw with food has been when I lived in the Netherlands. In around 2009, I went out to dinner with colleagues and friends. We all started talking about foods from home, right? And this colleague starts talking about something from Brazil called acarajé. And he's describing, at first he didn't say acarajé, right? So he's describing this bean fritter that is made by certain women who wear a particular dress, and it's food of the goddess, Inyasa. And he's saying all these things, and I'm like, I'm looking perplexed with each minute. And then in the end I was like that sounds like akara. During the slave trade, people from Nigeria and people from Africa, he said. But I knew it had to be Nigeria because, first of all, the name had to, and I think for that, it struck me then that for those people who had taken acarajé from Nigeria to Bahia in the northeast of Brazil, tortured, tormented, stolen from their homelands in very unfamiliar territory, but yet they still held on to things that strengthened, that, gave them courage. And I think I could relate with that because I was living in the Netherlands. I was incredibly homesick, but it wasn't I wasn't in bondage, but I kind of had some similar experiences, and I think that transformed my relationship with food. I'd always loved cooking and eating, but that made it deeper and richer.
I think something you've also been doing is also reinventing Nigerian food. I think that's what I find very special about you. A lot of people who cook it's really about, you know, what they've learned outside, how exciting it is to make filet mignon or something. But, you know, you're going and you're taking zobo and making, you know, making jelly out of it, making jam, making dips out of it, making a cocktail out of it, or tiger nuts, and making jollof out of the chaff, you know, from it. And just basically like getting us to rediscover local foods that we have here. And what's been the reaction to people just who follow you and how they experience the food as well?
Usually diametrically opposed. So there are people who are like, yay, amazing, reinventing Nigerian food, new Nigerian kitchen. And they're like people who actually swear at me, who like,
really?
What are you doing? And why are you desecrating and destroying? But for me, yeah, two things. I've lived in different places, I've traveled, I've read, I've eaten, I've watched lots of food TV. And I realized that in spite of all the differences, cuisines are basically the same, just, you know, different techniques, different presentations, and different combinations. And I think that there's so much that we have to know and discover about Nigerian food and document. Like, it's not enough to make all these fancy things or make things with Nigerian food. The important thing is also to document it, because there's so much. Our food is so full of flavor, so nutritious. It has such incredible variety, and it actually shocks me that we don't celebrate it as much as we do football and fine art and visual arts and everything else. And for me, that's my drive really, to explore our ingredients, to explore techniques, to explore flavor combinations, and just hopefully to represent the familiar in new ways that can actually inspire and delight people.
But why do you think we're not doing that? Or we sort of, I don't want to say we're opposed to it, but why haven't we been interested in it for a while?
I don't think we're opposed to it. I think we've just taken it for granted. I think, you know, like food, shelter, clothing.
It's so
standard.
basic, it doesn't feel.
It's so basic that people just don't think that there's more to it or there should be more to it. Yeah, we eat. Actually, a lot of people eat because they have to, not because they really want to. And that shocks me because, like, there's so much on the plate. Like, why? It's not, for me, eating isn't just, no matter how routine it is, no matter how many times I've eaten it, there's always a tiny bit of excitement because I'm like, I might discover a new flavor combination. I might discover a new textural combination. And for me, that hope, I think we've just, basically taken it for granted, yet there's so much more.
Something that's also interesting about food is how it sort of shows our interconnectivity, right? And because I remember you talking about the fact that you made a quesadilla, and I think you used wheat flour, and someone from a Latin American country like came to criticize you. I was like, we don't do that, you know? And I remember traveling, and I was in Colombia, and we were served food. It was coconut rice, fish, and there's this vegetable called bleo, which just looked like a pho. And you know, I'm literally eating. I'm like, I'm at home now. This is Lagos. This is my house. How do you think that, especially with your approach to food and sort of giving this global unifying context, how do you think that can even help us to sort of bridge divides culturally? Like, do you think it has that power to even go through to those levels?
Of course it does. I was doing some research a few weeks ago about bottom pot, right? Because I was shocked to discover that bottom pot, you know, when you make rice and it burns at the bottom, that wasn't just a Nigerian phenomenon.
Really?
Right? So I did this look around the world. So I'm talking about from South America to Europe to Asia to other parts of Africa. Practically every culture has a bottom pot dish that is celebrated. So in Korea, for instance, they use bottom pot to make some kind of tea. In Japan, they have a whole ceremony around it. And I'm like, but it makes sense because if I think about how, you know, the evolution of human beings, how we went from eating raw and unprocessed foods to smoking. Smoking, I think the discovery of fire led to this massive explosion in cooking, right? And I think that smoke, I think that a desire for smoke and understanding of smoke, and the love for smoke is it's appreciated in every cuisine, right? So most cuisines understand smoke. I think it's hardwired into our DNA as human beings. So there's so many similarities, and for me, it's like if someone who is not Nigerian can understand that what we call soups in Nigeria are actually stews, then, you know, we can begin to navigate the waters. We can begin to find the similarities in the midst of all the differences. And I think that for me is quite fascinating.
You've been working on so many interesting things. There's the new Nigerian kitchen.
Yes.
You have the seasonal calendar.
Yes.
Just break it down for me, because it's a lot.
I think that where we've suffered in Nigeria, in particular, is our lack of documentation. So I've been collecting cookbooks, Nigerian cookbooks from the 30s. I have from practically every decade.
Wow.
And what I realized
Where did you find them?
On the internet. In fact, I found an Igbo cookbook that was published in 1939 in Tunisia. I found it in a cellar, with a cellar in Tunisia. But the thing is that there's so much knowledge, right? But if it isn't available, if it isn't in our faces, we're not going to learn, right? So there's one thing is actually knowing what we have. So we actually have to know what we have, in terms of produce, in terms of products. So in terms of produce, what's in season and when. I think that's because Nigeria, we eat seasonally, yeah? We eat, when mangoes are in season, everyone's eating mangoes. When agbalumo is in season, everyone's eating agbalumo. And we eat a lot of fresh produce. And my desire is like, if people know that, okay, we have mangoes, okay, we have agbalumo from December till April, we can actually move beyond just eating to, okay, now that we have agbalumo, what can we do with it? What can we create with it? And then from there we can go on, how can we preserve it? And then we can go, how can we export it? How can we share it with other people, right? Because agbalumo, for instance, which we know as the African star apple, isn't the only star apple. There are star apples in other parts of the world, like in South America and in Asia, they have a purple star apple and a white star apple that look and probably taste, I haven't tasted them, look and probably taste the same as agbalumo. So you can start building those bridges, right? And then you can develop a language, help people categorize foods. Okay, we only have one drinking soup in Nigeria, which is actually a broth, pepper soup, right? And then you have the stews, which we call soups. And it's just, if we're able to, because it's about recognizable language. So if I'm talking to someone who's Malaysian and there's a common language for food and it's stew, then when I talk about rice and stew, they know what I'm talking about. Yeah. When I talk about jollof rice or red rice, they, you know, it's for me it's about framing it in language and terms that people can understand. And the new Nigerian kitchen, really, it's a celebration. It's a celebration of Nigerian food. I think that Nigerian food, I believe that it's so amazing. I've eaten, like, I can taste food in my head. And Nigerian food still gets me every single time. It's the flavors, it's the combinations, it's the textures, it's the techniques. So yeah, it's worth celebrating.
Speaking of techniques, that's something that's also very interesting that becomes very competitive for us as well. So you'd have somebody say, you know, cooking a dikaikong soup, this is how you do it. And they're like, no, what are you doing? That's not how we do it. And there's a certain sort of competitive nature about that in terms of technique, where everyone feels like where they're from, they do it better than the other person. So banga in this part of the country is completely different from this part of the country, and everyone feels that theirs is the real one as well. Yeah. I mean, what's your take on the sort of competitive nature of our technical?
I think it's human nature, but I also think that, look, what's the fun in all of us being the same, or in all our approaches being the same? It's no fun. But I don't think that it has to be that, oh, I'm so much, you know, my way is better than yours like a million times, and, you know, this is the only way. No, it isn't. I mean, I've tasted banga. My mom is Sokoh, so she's from the south of Nigeria, and they make banga soup like they don't have a monopoly on making the best banga soup, but they kind of do, right? But I've also had...
I like the shade you just...
They kind of do.
They do, but they kind of do.
Well, actually, my mom's banga in particular.
Yeah.
But I've also had ofeako, which is the one from the Igbos, from the east of Nigeria. It's also delicious. And maybe because of me, I'm more interested in how did they make it? What leaf did they use here versus what leaf would my mother do? But I think that it's all, for me, it all adds to the diversity and the richness of our culture. We don't all want to be the same.
What would you say has been like the most interesting sort of discovery of food for you? So the item that you sort of found, you know what, it existed, yes, but you found it, you became obsessed.
One?
Yes, just give me one.
Just one?
Okay, give me two. Give me two.
Scent leaf.
Okay.
And agbalumo.
What is your obsession with agbalumo?
I think, you know, when I grew up, we always used to call it cherry.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why do they call it cherry? And then I think I tasted sour cherries once. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay. So since they call it cherry, then can I do with it all the things that people do with cherries? And that was where it started from. So, and then with each experiment, so I think I first started with making drinks. And then I read about it and I read about how much vitamin C it had. And I was like, oh, yeah, it makes sense. Nature is so complete in my head because it's December when it comes out. December, January, February, usually the height of flu season. Agbalumo and citrus are in season then. Vitamin C powerhouses.
Well, you just turned into a homeopathic doctor right now.
Sorry. But yeah, so for me, all this connection. So I first started with making drinks, and at first I started with the skin, and it was horrible. And then I tried the flesh, and then I tried the seeds, and you know, and then it builds up, and then you learn more about the actual fruit. You learn more about its properties. It has agbalumo, for instance, has a lot of pectin, has a lot of latex as well. If you heat it, it becomes gummy. So all these discoveries, and then I'm thinking, okay, so now I've made my drink. I have some of the agbalumo flesh pulp left over. Oh, can I bake a cake with it? Can I blitz it into a sorbet? And then the ideas just really come out of there. And I can't hold myself back.
I love the fact that you document your failures as well with your experiments.
Oh yeah, that's so...
You do that all the time, and I'm just like, oh, this is amazing, because you're like, okay, I made this, but it looked horrible, or it didn't turn out great. Tomorrow I'm going to make another one. And I mean, what gives you, because it's a courageous thing to do. Everyone, especially when it comes to this sort of putting yourself out in the public, everybody wants to be perfect.
Okay, well, I learned the hard way that I wasn't perfect I think before 2008, 2009, I really thought I was this correct fly babe, and you know, I had it all going on. And then I basically had a midlife crisis at work. I was working abroad. I didn't feel good enough. In fact, I didn't feel good enough. And at that time, I went for a conference. It's called Women in Networking. And at that conference, I went for a workshop, and one of the workshops was writing a personal mission statement. And so I wrote my personal mission statement, which is to encourage men and women and inspire them to live their lives to the best of their ability, in spite of their ambition, whatever they want to be. But at that same conference, a lady talked about how she learned more from her failures than her successes, and how actually sitting down and actively reviewing her mistakes. So I realized that before she said that, I would make a mistake and I would move on, I'd gloss over it, and I would never sit down to say, oh, you didn't do right here, or this is exactly where you went wrong. I would never do that. But of course, what that meant was that I kept repeating the same mistakes over and over and over again. But she made me conscious of the fact that failure is as important as success in learning. And I just realized how for one, it keeps me accountable. One, it brings, so if I want to repeat an experiment that has previously failed, I already know what went wrong the last time and I can correct it. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 tries. Sometimes my brain is like, no, I'm not going to catch up with you. I'm going to repeat the same mistake. But having it written down, yeah, I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I can go beyond this. And, you know, it's my life. I want it to be a life of meaning, and it's not about perfection.
And it also helps to document your progress as well.
Yes, it does. Because then I can see how far I've come as well.
So you're dropping some wisdom today.
I think I turned 40 last year, so I'm kind of feeling every bit of 40, feeling old. Not always very wise, but yeah.
Well, that's when life really starts, isn't it? 40. That's not what they say.
Look, I'm telling you, the whole thing is a scam. Honestly, I keep telling my children now, have fun, have fun, because adulting, everything is a scam, because I see that. No, it's hard being an adult. It's hard being an adult.
Tell me.
Very hard. So, if I could rewind, well, no wahala. We're here, it's all good. It's not. I remember reading David Chang of Momofuku.
Okay.
I remember reading his book and crying.
Wow, why?
Because I could, so many strokes. He wrote about his life, about his struggles, about his discovery of his love for food and ramen, and he went to Japan. And there's just this self-exploration, self-awareness, self-discovery around, and recipes that were as long as 17 pages and all of that. But I think that's the closest I've gotten to.
I mean, if it made you cry,
if it
made you cry, then it must have had an impact.
It made me cry.
But I should check out that book.
It's a great book.
I kind of like the idea of sort of self-discovery through food.
Yeah. Oh God. What's his name? Oh gosh. Well, he has a restaurant called For Grace in Chicago. I knew his name because I also have a crush on him. He's an amazing chef. What's his name?
I love how your crush for the person supersedes their work.
Curtis, I can't remember, but For Grace is his restaurant in Chicago, and I watched his story on. He has a documentary on Netflix, and I cried. And he's incredibly gorgeous and incredibly emotional and an absolute god with food.
Why do I feel like I already know what it will be?
Maybe agbalumo.
I said it.
Well, I guess sweet, sour, different parts. Yeah, different. Agbalumo for sure. Oh, creative. For a day. Sing. I'd like to be a singer.
But can you actually sing?
Well, most people don't think so. But I think I can very well. I think I have a really unique voice, but no one's taking me on my offer yet.
I love the confidence you have in yourself as you just said that.
No, I really think I can. I really think I can sing.
Are you sure it's not just a shower thing?
No, I don't even sing in the shower. I really think I can sing. In fact, I'd love to do a duet with Brimo.
Ooh, girl.
Putting it out there. Just something emotional, though. Something that would make you cry.
Very cool.
I don't know.
A bit of
Adele, maybe, or Gravity. Have you heard Gravity?
Gravity.
Sarah Bareilles.
Oh, okay.
Or something from Shadi. Honestly, I don't know. But something that would make you cry and feel love.
You like to cry, don't you?
I haven't cried in a while, but I just think that it's important release. I think it's important. Some relationships. Nothing to do with food, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh God, do you? Like, totally do you. Don't even care if your twin sister or brother doesn't understand what you're doing. Just do you, be you, discover you. That's it. Don't listen to people saying, oh, this won't work, because you won't know till you try it. Or people saying, oh, this is such a stupid idea. Well, it's my idea and I like it and that's good enough for me. So just do you, be you, trust you. That's it. Totally. I think it's about getting people to see. It's about inspiring people to see things differently, to understand a bit about themselves, to be able to see a connection. When I watch chefs cook, and I find that, like, in Western cuisine, they'll use lots of lemon and lime to cut through rich food. And I realized that in Nigeria, we do the same with lemongrass and with bitter leaf. And for me, it's understanding those things that connect us, in spite of how different they look, in spite of how unsimilar they look. So for me, it's finding those connections. Those connections. Ooh, this reminds me of my mother. God, this makes me. This doesn't look Nigerian, but it tastes Nigerian. Oh my God, where'd you get your ideas from? So many things. But I think most of it comes from my children, because they're my fiercest supporters and critics. Like, they tell me how it is. Yeah. So I make some stuff and they're like, oh my God, Mama, how did you do this? Can you make more of this? Yeah, it's always that, can you make more of this? So right now it's agbalumo juice. Like, so, Mama, can you make more this weekend? I'm like, yes. So that, yeah. Anything that basically panders to my awesome creations, yes, gets me.
Ozoz, thank you so much.
Thank you, dear. Thank you so much.
It was awesome. Good to have you here.
It was lovely. Thank you.
I hope you had a good time.
I had an awesome, like, you actually made me laugh. You made me think. I really, really, really enjoyed it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, we've come to the end of the show. Thank you so much to Ozoz Sokoh, the kitchen butterfly, for gracing us with her awesomeness today. Also, I'd like to give a big shout out to Sauce Productions for loaning us their studio as well. And if you did enjoy the show, please make sure you subscribe, make sure you like, and also give us a thumbs up and share the videos as well. You'll find out all the information you need at the bottom of the screen. Don't forget, until next time, remember, art